we, Congress, are requesting that the Copyright Office examine PROs. And this is so huge because it gives us an avenue towards transparency, oversight. Handling artists' royalties is a multi-billion-dollar business. I'm looking at drafting on behalf of all of us as a music business community, written comments. Man, I'm fired up today, guys. We talk about these middlemen who are in charge of collecting your music royalties. And we talk about the problems that have arisen because these companies will pocket your royalties. They'll make you sign these unconscionable, meaning truly unfair contracts in order to use their platforms. But the way it works with these music platforms like Spotify is that you have no other choice. You have to use these music distributors. So in the realm of middlemen that are collecting your royalties and paying you out, we have music distributors, but we also have performance rights organizations. The reason is because there are different types of royalties associated with your music. Now, here's what's interesting. With performance rights organizations, there are three majors, okay? These three are for the United States, which are SESAC, ASCAP, and BMI. But there are actually three others, which we're going to discuss in today's video. And at least as it relates to BMI and ASCAP, there in fact are consent decrees, meaning there are these agreements in place to help govern how these entities run themselves and to ensure that you are paid properly. But of that list I just gave you, that's only two. That means there are other companies that are just doing their thing without any kind of regulation. And then also, P.S., when it comes to music distributors who are still today pocketing your royalties and even say that's what they're going to do in their contracts with you, music distributors remain completely unregulated. So why do we care? Well, we care because we have a big update. And this is so huge because it gives us an avenue towards transparency, a degree of oversight over these companies, and potentially an opportunity for you to have your voice heard literally by Congress. So I'm gonna explain what's going on, but because this impacts anyone who makes music and earns royalties from their music, I'm gonna ask you one thing, and that's to just share this video with someone who makes music so that they can be a part of this conversation. So for context, we have BMI, ASCAP, who actually entered into consent decrees with the Department of Justice because the Department of Justice was like, hey, we think you are basically becoming monopolies. You have all the power, all the control, and we need to make sure you're not screwing over creatives, publishing companies. And so we're going to enter into essentially these settlement agreements, so AKA consent decrees. But that's only 2 of the 6 PROs here in the United States. Most other countries, by comparison, have 1 PRO, right? So simplicity. But the business of handling artists' royalties is a multi-billion-dollar business. So now we have other players that have stepped into the marketplace and are actually creating issues. So in response to this, House Representatives for Congress, this is the Committee on the Judiciary, put together this letter and sent it over to the Copyright Office. So we, Congress, are requesting that the Copyright Office examine current practices involving licensing fees paid to PROs. A number of stakeholders have raised concerns about emerging issues related to PROs, and we're asking the Copyright Office to investigate and provide us the findings respecting the following stuff we're really worried about. So 1, the committee goes on to say, hey, Copyright Office, there have been a proliferation, there have been a whole lot more PROs that have emerged. And then besides ASCAP, SESAC, BMI, there's Global Music Rights, which is GMR, PRO Music Rights, and also AllTrack. And then all of which have emerged in roughly the last decade or so. As a result, licensees have reported receiving demands for royalties from new entities claiming to represent songwriters and threatening litigation if the demands are not met. Now look, I can attest to, for example, demands from ASCAP, BMI, they're all over it. If there is a business that is using music as part of its business practice without paying for one of these licenses, well, ASCAP, SESAC, BMI, they will all send demands and say, hey, we're going to sue you because we have the legal authority to represent the songs of our songwriters and to collect their performance royalties so we can pay them. And then we have seen instances where, well, someone didn't get that license and then ASCAP decided to sue and sought statutory damages for willful copyright infringement in the amount of $150,000 per instance of infringement, aka very threatening letters, and then potentially lawsuits thereafter. So in the letter on behalf of Congress, there's essentially two main issues. One, well, these businesses are getting confused, getting threats, getting sued, and then of equal importance, right? The purpose of the PRO is to issue licenses and to collect and distribute royalties to songwriters, composers, and music publishers. Now, in order to do this, PROs collect data from licensees and other sources to determine what music was performed, including by playing it publicly or through broadcasting. So basically, this letter says, hey, Copyright Office, we need you to investigate whether there are any gaps or discrepancies in royalty distributions. What are the technology and business practices that the PROs participate in, and what can be developed to improve the system? And first of all, I'm like, oh great, this is amazing. So then in response, the Library of Congress, so the Copyright Office, issued this notice of inquiry. And notably is going to be taking written comments, which need to be received by April 11th, 2025. We as a music business community are going to put in written comments in regards to how we need help and oversight with performance rights organizations. I'll discuss this more here shortly, but let's keep going through this notice. All right, so music copyright owners, right, have enjoyed exclusive rights to perform their stuff publicly since 1897. A variety of ways those works are performed, however, have created practical challenges associated with the licensing of the rights. As one court summarized the issue, the users of music, such as theaters, dance halls, bars, are so numerous and widespread that each performance so fleeting an occurrence that no individual copyright owner could negotiate licenses for the use of their music, right? Fair enough. So for you music creators out there, you go, well, for the public performance, so meaning your performance royalties, how do you get paid those? Well, you get paid those from your performance rights organization. You need just one that is representing your music. If you happen to be in a different country right now watching this, well, it's going to be the PRO for your country. And so as a general kind of like homework item, if you are not registered with your local PRO, please make sure you do get registered so you can get paid. That's why PROs came into existence. It was because we were trying to make sure that everyone got paid correctly and basically licensing out to all the different businesses. No, it just is not going to make sense. So first came ASCAP in 1914, followed by SESAC in 1931, and then BMI in 1939. Now guys, BMI used to be a not-for-profit and converted to a for-profit entity in 2022. On one side of the conversation of whether that's even a good thing, right? You might be able to argue, well, it's a good thing because if it's for-profit, then maybe the company will work harder for you, right? They'll try to, I don't know, get you licensing opportunities or just try to make this more advantageous for everyone because now they have a bigger incentive. On the other side of this, you go, well, you have a company that is now self-interested, right? Self-motivated. And so that's not going to put creators in a position where you have a company that's thinking of their best interests. But the important piece here is that the majority of PROs are for-profit companies. Now, BMI was acquired by private equity firm, which is New Mountain Capital. This was in 2023. And of some of the other smaller players, right? So we have GMR. I mean, GMR was valued at something like 3.3 billion. And in fact, the Copyright Office goes on to say, well, more recently, we have GMR, which was formed in 2013. There's PRO Music Rights, which was formed in 2018. And finally, AllTrack, which was formed in 2019. These organizations compete with each other for songwriter and publisher members through the license terms and programs they offer. And this is where those consent decrees come into play, because I go, well, in the same kind of way with distributors who clearly don't care about you and they're not doing this for you, they're doing this to make money off of you. Well, with PROs, I suppose we can make the same argument. And at least with the consent decrees, there was some level of now transparency and rules set for royalty calculations, but the rest of the PROs aren't playing by those rules. PROs provide licenses for a variety of performances, including, quote, terrestrial, satellite, and internet radio on-demand music streaming services, website and television users, bars, restaurants, and other commercial establishments, and live performances. The way it works is that let's say a bar or even a fitness center, right, a gym, would go and get an annual blanket license for like the whole catalog, right? So this is why most businesses do need to go and get a license, not just from ASCAP, but also go over to BMI, because it's kind of just a game of whose music are you playing and is that music registered with one or both of these companies? And then the wrinkle ends up becoming that a lot of music owned by, let's say, major record labels have all kinds of portions that are still retained by different organizations. So you have one song with different percentages that are represented by different PROs. The practice of licensing only partial interests in co-owned works is called fractional licensing and stands in contrast to 100% licensing, which entails granting full rights to use a co-owned work based on a partial interest in the work. Because songs are essentially created oftentimes by multiple authors, it makes clearance a little trickier. So from the business's standpoint, it's more expensive, it's more of a headache, and there's a lot of gray area. While the practice of fractional licensing has caused frustration for some licensees, it has encouraged competition among the different PROs for songwriter and publishers. So the Copyright Office goes on to basically just say that when it comes to now paying artists and the owners of music, that it's pretty tricky because the different venue has to report, right, what was performed, when was it performed, how many times. And so the data, the information gathering piece of this, and then to make sure that royalties are paid out correctly is very complicated. A PRO may charge different rates based on the categories of use. That's true, there are different rates, and this is part of kind of the PRO problem of certain things are billed out at different rates. For example, terrestrial, satellite radio, television, cable, audiovisual streaming services. In certain circumstances, PROs may also distribute royalty bonuses for hit songs or popular standards. With respect to live performances at larger venues, some PROs have historically only paid royalties for those musical works performed at the top grossing tours and festivals. So Congress gets involved, sends this letter, and then basically Copyright Office is saying, with respect to the concerns regarding revenue distribution to song creators, the congressional request states, quote, "It is difficult to assess how effectively PROs are distributing general licensing revenue based on publicly available data, including how accurately lesser known and independent artists as well as smaller publishers are being compensated compared to widely popular artists and music publishers." Okay, so then this is what the Copyright Office is going to be inquiring about, and this is the basis of the feedback that I want from you watching this video right now. How PROs currently gather information concerning the public performance of music at live venues. So here's my question. If you use, let's say, BMI, do you take the time after your performance to go into your BMI account and to input, I played at this venue, these are the songs that I played? And if not on BMI, do you do that with your applicable PRO? This is one that the Copyright Office will have to answer whether the manner in which the PRO gathers information regarding the public performance adversely impacts lesser known artists and smaller publishers. The Copyright Office is also going to look at any gaps or disparities occurring in royalty distributions, and especially for independent artists out there. Are you being impacted by this? But one of my questions to you is, are you registered with a PRO? Number one. Number two, do you look at the statements that your PRO sends you, or I should say, uploads into your account? What technologies and business practices exist or could be developed to improve the current systems for usage tracking and royalty distribution, and any additional recommendations for Congress to address these issues? All right, so what I want you to do is leave a comment on this video, and for example, what I'm looking at potentially drafting on behalf of all of us here as a music business community, I want to focus on our artist experience, whether you have experienced a lack of transparency, unfair distribution models, and I would certainly request of Congress that there be fair payment structures if independent artists are in fact being paid less. And because these PROs are often doing direct deals in regards to the grant of global licenses, I want to push for more accountability, clear reporting, but more importantly, I want to hear from you guys. So drop a comment down below and I'll see you on the next one. I'm Top Music Attorney.